Hello and welcome back to another episode. If you want to do what? Today we've got Emily Hennigan on, and she's an estate agent. Hi, Emily.
Hello.
How are we?
Oh, not too bad. How are you guys?
Yeah, good, good. It's Tuesday, so we're motoring along the week, thankfully.
Nearly halfway there.
It's terrible we say that, isn't it? We
I
shouldn't
know the
say that
week's
this
never
early.
Shouldn't
arrived
wish away
yet.
the days, but.
I know.
Emily, should we jump straight in? Do you want to tell everyone a bit about what you do?
Yeah, so I have an estate agency, Emily Hennigan Real Estate. I'm based in Glasgow, so I basically help homeowners, developers, and investors sell their property with as little stress and hassle as possible. I know that sounds daft, but it can actually be done. And I've been doing that for the past year and a half.
So, estate agency, why did you go into it?
So I've always kind of been in the world of property. I started off whilst I was at uni. I worked in a letting agency part time, and I did that all throughout my uni career. Actually, I went to uni and I left after 3 years. I didn't like it at all. It was just one of those things where it's just what you were told you had to do when you left school.
Yeah.
Leave school, go to uni, and if you don't go to uni, what the hell are you doing? So I went to uni. I went and did a master's course in international business and Spanish, just mainly because I thought business, that's quite widespread. I could maybe do a few things with that. And then Spanish, I thought I'll get a year abroad out of it as well. So that was the main motivator for it. But then come the third year, I was supposed to go on the year abroad and then COVID hit.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, that got brought to a halt, so we weren't able to go abroad. And I thought, I cannot go another 3 years of this and not even get a year abroad out of it. So after the third year, I graduated with my bachelor's, and I was still working in the letting agency. And I thought, oh, I needed full time work. I'd left uni, and my family, they had a sourcing and investment company at the time. Which they'd had for years. So I just went to work with them for a bit, which was a good bit of experience, a different kind of sector in the industry. Did that for a wee bit. But I'd worked in sales actually just as a bit of work experience now and again over the summers. And I knew that that's really the route that I wanted to go down. And I knew I wanted to have my own business. I didn't want to work for anybody. But it was that whole thing of like, oh, I'm too young, I don't know enough, I need to get more experience. All those things went on in my head.
Yeah,
Um,
lots of self-doubt about, can you actually do it, right?
I absolutely, and am I experienced enough? Are people just going to look at me and think, she's too young, what does she know? All those sort of things were going on. So I thought, okay, I'll maybe get a job in an estate agency. But then COVID hit, obviously, went to work, and I thought, do you know what? If there's ever a time to do it, it's probably now.
Yeah.
So I just went for it.
Oh, congratulations. I mean, it's such a big step to take. But that is the hardest step, isn't it? I don't know if you agree with me, but actually taking the jump and going, actually, I'm going to do this.
Oh, absolutely. Just going for it and not thinking too much about it. I think somebody had asked me not too long ago, like, if you knew what it was going to be like a year and a half ago, would you have still done it? I said, probably not. If you know like, how hard it's going to be, but just jump into it really naively and just go at it guns blazing and see what happens is the best thing you can do.
I think you made a really good point earlier about university, and we always talk about this. Like Tom went to university, he studied, is it mechanical engineering, Tom? Yeah, so mechanical engineering, that to me is worth going to university. But
But
so many people, like my school specifically, sat me down and asked me why I wasn't filling in a UCAS application because I always knew I didn't want to go to university. I was done with the education. But they actually sat me down and were like, "Well, what are you going to do?" I'm like, "Well, I'm going to go and get a job in the city or whatever. I don't want to go to university." And the fact that they constantly push people into uni, so many people just waste their time. Personally, that's my opinion. And people I've spoken to on this podcast, it's a waste of their time. If they don't know exactly what they want to do or use their degree, some people have a great time. But from my personal experience and what we've talked about, I don't really see it being as valuable as it was. And people shouldn't be pushed to it, right?
no, absolutely. I think if you're going to be a doctor, absolutely, that's the way to go. But it's in school, you think if you don't go to uni, it's like, you're done for. That's kind of what's pushed down your throat. If you're not going to uni, what are you doing with your life? You're not going to be successful. Like owning a business and starting something of your own is just not something that they encourage, or at least when I was at school, it was just not encouraged at all. It was too risky. You needed to go to uni, get a degree, get a job, settle down, and that was you. But there's so many people out there that are, I mean, I went to uni just because I thought that's what I had to do. And I did get a really good, I made friends for life at uni. And that was probably about it, to be honest. I've never used my degree once. Maybe the languages, I've used that a few times. But yeah, there needs to be more support for people that, just don't want to do that. And it needs to be encouraged more.
No, you're certainly right. For you though, starting your business, what was that first step? Obviously, it was quite a hurdle. But what did that actually involve? What was the first things you actually started doing to start your business?
So I understood that estate agency was the route I wanted to go down, and it made sense, with my family having a sourcing and investment company. I'd worked in lettings. The natural progression was sales, and it was the part that I enjoyed the most. And then it was just whether I set up completely on my own as a complete independent high street agent, or whether I went under an umbrella with somebody. So I'm with Keller Williams at the moment. And they're just this, I'm still my own company. My actual company is Casa Estate Agents, actually, but I trade as Emily Hennigan Real Estate with Keller Williams, and they're just a massive support system, basically. And they provide you with all the tools that you need to set up the estate agency. If you have any questions, there's a team there that you can phone, and they're happy to help you any time of the day. And when you're just starting, having that, it's invaluable.
That's interesting. I've not heard of that before. So you've got backing from another company. Could you explain a bit more about how that actually works?
Yeah, so I am with Keller Williams. So essentially, I always find it quite difficult to explain. I ask them a million times, how do you really explain it?
Okay.
And it's actually really simple. It's not difficult. It's just a group of independent agents all working under the one umbrella, essentially.
Okay, so like a pool of resources.
Yeah, exactly. And Keller Williams, for me, they're there to support me, because as much as, I know how to sell a house, there's so many people that you come across and so many different scenarios and things that I've never dealt with before. And being, the owner of the business, the buck stops with you.
Yeah.
So if there's a problem, you need to deal with it. Whereas if you were in a job, you would usually just pass it off to somebody else and never think about it again.
Yeah.
So there's things that I've come up against that I think, oh gosh, like how do you deal with this situation? What do I do? What do I say? I've never, spoken to this type of person before, and our personalities are clashing a wee bit. How do I deal with it? So just having somebody there that you can pick up the phone and say, listen, I don't know how to deal with this. Can you help?
I mean, that sounds incredibly helpful. That's great to know if anybody's thinking of starting themselves. But to be an estate agent and to do what you're doing, do you need any formal qualifications or anything of that sort?
No, you actually don't. To be a letting agent, you need to go through Letwell exams. That's quite a regulated industry. But to be in estates and to have your own estate agency business, there are courses and qualifications that you can do, but none of it is, necessary. All you need to have is all the regulation and things in place, and know what you're doing, basically.
So what's an average day for you like at the moment?
Oh, busy. Social media is a really big thing for me. So wake up, it's like clockwork, honestly. Wake up, emails first thing in the morning, then I'll maybe do some video content because it's, peak time for daylight. Film some TikToks. I don't know if you guys like TikTok. I love TikTok.
I had to delete it because I got so addicted.
Yeah, I'm still trying to battle that problem, but I use, the fact that I post TikToks as an excuse to go on TikTok. It's for work. That's what I say. So I'll do social media content, and then I book in all my valuations and viewings in the afternoons. So that's usually what the afternoons are taken up until maybe 8, 9 o'clock at night.
Wow. So it's a long old day.
Yeah, very long days, 7 days a week. It's not as glamorous as it might sound.
And how important is social media to the world of estate agency these days?
Oh, massively. I think, the world's changing. Like, social media is the place to be. If you're not on social media, your business just isn't going to reach its potential.
Oh,
With
100%.
me, I don't have a shop front. I don't have, a designated website necessarily. I mean, there's the Keller Williams website where I'm a part of it, but I don't have an Emily Hennigan real estate website. Everything is just run through Facebook, LinkedIn, TikTok, Instagram, all the social media platforms, and that's how I run my business.
Is it fair to say that work-life balance can be quite difficult being an estate agent? You've mentioned you've worked, quite long hours. I guess you have to travel to properties to do showings and things like that. Is it difficult to maintain that work-life balance?
Oh, absolutely. I think being an estate agent, you're just working for an estate agency, the work-life balance is quite difficult because of that. But see, owning the business and having that responsibility, I'm not very good at the work-life balance at the moment, I'll be honest. But yeah, it is 7 days a week, and if a client needs you, you need to be there. I mean, obviously you set your boundaries and things, and I'm not answering phone calls at all hours of the day, but yeah, it's really difficult. Travel time for viewings is a big thing, and then you get there and people don't show up, and then you need to go back out, and yeah, I'm here, there, and everywhere all the time.
What do you think are some of the critical personality traits you need to, one, be an estate agent, but also own your own company as an estate agent?
Patience. You need a lot of patience. You're dealing with all different walks of life every single day, and some people are more challenging than others, and understandably at times they're buying or selling a massive asset, which can be really daunting for people, so they have lots of questions and all that going on, so you're kind of nursing people through the process a wee bit sometimes, which is what I'm there for. So yeah, patience. You need to be focused, and you need to be driven to run the business, and you need to really believe in what you're doing. It's a long game having a business. It does not happen overnight, and I learned that the hard way. At the start, I thought, I've registered my company, I've got a logo, I've got a Facebook account, people are going to be knocking at my door now. And
that's such an important point. I think, when people start businesses, and there's so much bullshit on the internet about you start your business, you can make £10,000 in a month. And it's just not true. It takes years and hard work and behind the scenes graft. And then, yes, you will, if you work hard and you put the time in, you will get results. But this 10-minute, quick fix to money is just not real, is it?
Oh my gosh, absolutely not. You go through, that's another thing when you're setting up a business, like expect sleepless nights because you're so anxious. You think, I can't do this anymore. I'm so tired. I'm so stressed. I'm not getting the business. I don't know what to do. And loneliness is a big thing. And that's something that I never spoke about for a while. But when you start a business, it is lonely. And especially, if you're running it yourself, you need to celebrate your successes. You need to take your failures on the chin yourself. Nobody's going to do it for you. And that can be a really lonely place to be sometimes. And that's something that I don't think you can really be prepared for.
And what do you think is the biggest positive that you take away personally from working in the estate agency business?
Oh, I get to meet so many people, and it's such a, my confidence as, just personally is growing massively over the past year and a half, with being in business. And I never used to do like my videos and things like that, and talking to the camera and being able to talk to all these different types of people from different walks of life that you would never, ever, ever have met unless I was doing what I did. So yeah, your confidence grows massively. It's just like anything, the more you do it, the better you get at it, and you learn things along the way.
And on the flip side of that, what would be some of the negatives of this industry you found?
Oh, it can be quite, as a young woman in the industry, it is very male dominated, in all aspects of the industry, whether it's sourcing, letting, sales, it is heavily male dominated, and there's not that many young people doing it. So, coming up against the age barriers, and learning how to have, really difficult, stern conversations with people and really setting boundaries is really difficult. And I think another thing as well, being in real estate and being an estate agent, it's an industry that doesn't have a great reputation as it is. So when you say to somebody, I'm an estate agent, they go, oh, all right. Which is something that I wanted to change, and that's why I wanted to set up my own. But, especially on TikTok, if you've been on TikTok, you'll probably know the amount of hate that goes through that. So if you read some of my comment section, you need to have a thick skin for it.
Yeah, it's unfortunate about social media. That is part of it, isn't it?
I know it's one of the things that you hear about and you think, oh, if somebody said that to me, they don't know what they're talking about, but see, when somebody actually does say it to you, it can take you back a wee bit, even though you know that they don't know what they're saying, and you shouldn't take it personally.
Yeah, it is one of those things, like you say, you have to develop that kind of thick skin for, don't you?
Oh, absolutely. And it's not easy. Like, it gets to me. Some things people say or people do, but it's just, you just get used to it after a while.
Definitely. So if anybody's listening and they're thinking, oh, actually, I'd really like to be an estate agent, what are your top maybe 2 tips? Maybe it's a skill they should learn or something they can sort of practice beforehand. What should they be doing?
Number one thing I always say to people that reach out and say, I'm thinking of getting into the industry, what should I do? Get experience. That is the first and foremost thing you should do. Whether that is working, whether you want to work for a company or whether you want to set up your own agency, getting the experience first is so important. Going and getting a job as an estate agent can be quite difficult. So there's different ways that you can get that experience. Something that I did, I worked as a viewing agent for the letting agency that I worked for initially. So I did all the viewings, just part-time and at the weekends, and it just got my foot in the door and I got to meet the viewers, learn about the properties, that sort of thing. But really understand the industry, because it can sound really glamorous, but the reality is so far from it.
Yeah, I watched my girlfriend made me watch Selling Sunsets. Have you seen that?
I've watched a few episodes, yeah.
It's a terrible program, but it's very addictive. And that makes being a real estate agent look quite fun.
Yeah, that makes it look really cool and glamorous and lovely. And if you're selling those types of houses, then I'm sure it would be. But if you're in anywhere else in the world, I'll go to viewings and sometimes it'll be, an executive property, the heating hasn't been on for months, it's cold, it's dark, and I'm just standing there and I need to wait about, and it's really the most unglamorous thing you've ever seen.
And how much of working in this stage is becoming better at sales? Because you just mentioned, when you're going to a property maybe that needs a lot of work, hasn't been looked after, there's no heating, you have to try and flip that into the positive. So how have you developed that kind of skill set?
Yeah, it's something that I'm still learning and something I will continue to learn for years to come. You can never know everything when it comes to sales. Initially getting the property on, that's the biggest sort of sales thing you need to do. You need to sell yourself essentially, and you need to prove to the client that your service is, you're worth it. And you're better than everybody else out there. You're better than all the high street agents, maybe the other independent agents. And you need to go in and be really prepped and prepared to answer any questions or pushbacks that they have. And there's a lot of them that they could have. So being able to answer those really confidently is something that I'm still learning to do. And I know lots of other agents as well, they're still figuring out the best way to say things and the best way to propose their service as well. But in terms of, the properties on the market, if it's maybe, you learn about the types of people that buy these properties as well. So if it's maybe a property that needs a bit of work done, it's probably going to be most likely aimed towards the investor sort of person. Maybe not so much in this market, because trying to get a property within the right price range for an investor is really difficult. Or if it's maybe a 3-bed house that needs work, it could be aimed at, a first time family buyer that's maybe looking to put their own stamp on things, or an investor that's looking to do a flip property or looking to do it as a buy to let. So you learn what kind of people buy different types of properties.
And you mentioned social media obviously being vitally important to being an estate agent, and you mentioned you're on TikTok, and I think we found you on LinkedIn.
Yes.
Is there a tip, or is there a trick, or is there something that you did to get better at it? Is it just a case of continually posting and learning?
Yeah, I mean, consistency is key with everything. So posting regularly, but I think finding your wee thing. So I really love videos, and I think you maybe find me through a picture I put up about the way I dress as an estate agent.
Yeah, I think we did actually.
Yeah, it's wee things like that. Finding your wee niche and something that you really enjoy doing. So some people really hate doing videos. I know, agents and other business owners that they just don't like the camera. But they're really good at maybe writing things. So they do, they do really like insightful posts. And it's just getting your voice out there in the way that you feel most comfortable doing it. Just being really authentic and not trying to force yourself to do something that just doesn't sit right with you.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, that's why we're hiding behind a podcast. For you, would you still go into this industry knowing everything you know now?
I would. I definitely would. I love what I do. And there's so much learning to it. I think if I knew what I knew now back then, I would do things differently. But I suppose hindsight's a great thing. And there's loads of conversations that would have went very differently, and all that sort of thing, and being able to push back and stand my own in a room full of very experienced older people, who to you're just a wee lassie. I get that a lot. Oh, we go.
Well, thank you so much for coming on and having a chat with us. It's been a real pleasure to hear all about your journey so far.
Thank you so much for having me. I've loved it.
Well, thank you. Where can people find you on LinkedIn, your website, everything that you've got going on?
Yeah, so you can find me on Facebook at Emily Hennigan Real Estate, LinkedIn, Emily Hennigan, feel free to connect with me, and TikTok as well, Emily Hennigan Real Estate. Feel free to have a wee nosy there and get lost down a TikTok hole.
Brilliant. Thank you, Emily.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.